Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to look at Atomic Empire by Thierry Smolderen and A Clérisse. And I probably butchered those two French names. I'm sorry, but I don't speak French very well, or at all. And this is a 2018 reprinting and translation of the 2013 French graphic novel, Souvenirs of the Empire of the Atomic. That's the original title, like how it would be translated. I don't know why they didn't think that was a good title, and they just shortened it to Atomic Empire. The art is by A. Clérisse here, Alexandre Clérisse, and as you can tell by the cover, this is just like some UPA animators from the late 50s got together and made a graphic novel. It's just a really amazing space age art in the true meaning of the word space age, the 50s and 60s. It's like very like retro, hip, modern with quotes around it. Very fun artwork, very different. It's a very nice, handsome little hardcover. No dust jacket, has the art right on the cover. IDW published it. So pretty nice, not too big. It's a decent sized graphic novel. So let's crack this open. I love these end papers. I mean, you can tell what you're getting into. This is just so, I don't know, like those, I had books that had this kind of graphic design when I was a kid, from the late 60s and stuff. Really nice title page there. This is just a really great example. His art, Clarisse's art, is basically just great graphic design. Here's the credits. And as you can see, this shit is gorgeous. Look at this. So this story is kind of complex. It jumps around in time. Starts off in Mexico, 1964. We see this guy, Paul, walking around with his daughter, Anne. And they're trying to find this, I guess, rediscovered Aztec temple. Oh man, the colors here, showing the strata of this old canyon. All of this color is so amazing. And as you can see, very, UPA animation, kind of that very hip, modern look. God, look at all this stuff. It's so abstracted and just crazy. They're playing a game of memory, that old Parker Brothers game or Milton Bradley game. And it's interesting, the captions by Smolderen. It's just what Paul's thinking. And he's having these really heavy thoughts just about like how time, all of these beautiful moments in your life, they're all going to fade away. Just like even the mountain they're sitting on will erode one day. And he gets this feeling of sadness and melancholy, even though he's with his daughter and he's loving it. But that's what's making him sad, that this is just a joyous moment. But it's, it says his mind went out to all those little crumbs of happiness that pile up and make a human life, and which would return into dust like the very clothes they wore. We find out he's a science fiction writer. And he picks up one of the memory cards and it has an old jalopy on it. He says, "Oh, we had a card like this when I was little." Which is a perfect little segue to Shanghai, 1926. So Paul's father, I assume, was a diplomat. He worked in Shanghai. It sounds like he's a widower. They don't talk about his mother, but she's not around. See, he sees this man being tortured in the streets. He's like some convict. I guess this is how they punished you back then. They'd parade you through the streets with this kind of yoke on your neck, and this guy's just screaming his head off. Paul's kind of horrified by it all. The father seems kind of nonplussed, just like, nah, that's how they do things here. And I kind of like how they use the memory card motif. He says, Paul saw all the cards that had made up his own life pass before his eyes. And all these little memory cards we're going to see, these are all little things we're about to read about. Some of these faces crack me up. That homely little girl's face. It's funny. Oh, God. I just think this stuff is so appealing to the eye. So now we have chapter 1. That was just the prologue. Swimmers of the Ether. So now we don't know what's going on, really. Brussels, 1958, 6 years earlier. We see Paul with this couple. They seem like they're in a daze. They're driving their car, like a very kind of space age, futuristic looking car. They almost hit a deer. And they realize that they're all foggy and their memories are all screwed up. And they're kind of, so you're like, what's going on with these people? Why are they all befuddled and confused? So their car runs out of gas a little while before their house. So they just say, let's just walk home. We'll leave this at this garage. We'll leave the car. And as they're entering the house, the wife says, I just saw 3 shapes flying by. And we see these little guys who weird little, I don't know, they kind of look like aliens with flippers on, floating around. They hear these voices. Paul and this couple hear them kind of saying, oh, wait for him. They shouldn't be long now. So they don't realize they're home because they didn't see the car pull up. And they don't see him, I guess, in the dark. So they go inside the house. The wife says, don't turn on the lights. So they have no idea they're in there. And, of course, they're very confused. They seem to be taking this a little too nonchalantly. I mean, there's 3 guys who look like Flip and Dippa outside their window flying around, and they're just going like, oh, well, hopefully they'll leave soon. Instead of going, holy shit, what the fuck's going on? Oh, man, all these colors, these subdued night colors, beautiful. I mean, I don't really know how this was made. I sometimes rail against certain artists using computers in their art. But I think this kind of art, it looks great. Because it does have like almost this artificialness anyway, this art. It's very abstracted. And I think it looks pretty nice. So now we have another flashback because Paul says, hey, how'd you guys meet? And they met in Poland. She was a Polish citizen. He was on vacation. They fell in love. He said, I want you to come to Brussels. And she says, well, it's going to take a while. It's hard to leave a communist country. But eventually, oh, actually, before I continue, guys, I just want to mention these guitar pick word balloons he has throughout the book. It's very kind of, they stand out. I've never seen these before. Not that it's good or bad, just interesting, I thought. So yeah, 6 years later, she finally makes it out of Poland, and she goes to Brussels, and they start their lifelong romance together. So now Paul recounts his past. This is 5 years earlier, Washington, D.C., 1953. And it seems like he's in a daze. He's almost running people over with his car. Paul makes it to his house. His wife, and there's little Anne, the girl we saw in the beginning, but, you know, when she was a little baby. He works for the government. He's kind of like in the propaganda branch of the military. So kind of high up, secret ops type shit. And I guess the wife says they called from the office. They're very worried. And we see his bosses or colleagues. They found all these weird notes in coded notes in an unknown language in his office. So they're just like, what the hell's going on here? Is he a spy or something? But they also see all these like star maps and charts. So they say, we got to get to the bottom of this. And they go to visit Paul. And the wife explains to them, is like, guys, Paul has this obsession. He's been drawing charts like this since he was 14. They're maps of an imaginary world where Paul goes to take his mind off things. So he's got this very active imagination. Of course, these guys are very confused and just like, that's pretty nuts. So one of them even calls a psychiatrist on Paul's behalf. But Paul explains himself. He says, yeah, it's true. Apparently, Paul's a genius. That's why he does his works for the government. So now we see the future, almost like his brother, like at 100,000 years in the future. Ever since he was 14, Paul has been communicating with this great hero, Zarth Arn. And I love this futuristic. It goes to black and white. And it's just like almost all the architecture in here looks like an old, amazing pulp. Literally the title, amazing pulp science fiction magazine or Galaxy, So Zarth Arn is the nephew of the Emperor of the Galaxy. Apparently the galaxy is just getting itself righted after like a long, centuries of despotic rule by this guy named the Depopulator. They've just vanquished him. Now they're moving on, trying to rebuild the galaxy, the Galactic Empire. And Zarth has kind of retired, even though he fought many of the battles to, liberate and consolidate this empire. But he just wants to study the past. He'd go through the archives. And then there's kind of little, like a little conspiracy controversy where he's been studying this prison planet, Sheol, which is almost like shrouded in the mists of, it's like an urban legend almost. And the Emperor says, let it go. Forget the name of that planet. Stop looking into it. It has something to do with the Depopulator. And of course, Zarth has no clue how, because apparently the Depopulator was killed 50 years ago. And that's how the Galactic Empire began. So Paul and him are communicating. So I guess just his whole life, he's had this like psychic chum in the future. Now we're back to 1958, and the husband accidentally turns the light on. He's just like, oh, crud. So these little aliens come in. The guy in the car, who seems to be their boss, he's just all like, they're inside. I was just about to give up. And they pull out guns on them. And basically they're his prisoner now. His name is Zelbub, and he's the antagonist in the story. Chapter 2, the jet-propelled couch. So now we have a flashback to New York, 1953, 5 years earlier. Now, this is, I guess for a spell, Paul just kind of like went off. I took a sabbatical, lived in New York City just to see this certain psychiatrist. And once again, I love the way he draws his face. That just cracks me up. It reminds me of Michael Kupperman. It's just funny, and I don't know why. But every time I see that panel, because I read this like a couple times last night, I was chuckling. So he is convinced that this whole imaginary construct in his brain is he's covering up some sexual trauma, typical Freudian stuff. And Paul does describe that he had a governess when he was, growing up, Sarah, and she was a grown woman, and she would do lewd and salacious things, come into his room and strip. He thought she was just sleepwalking. Turns out she wasn't. She's a perv. She even grabs his hand and sticks it under her dress. And then from then on, she would visit his room and initiate him into the ways of sex. And so, of course, the psychiatrist is convinced this is traumatized him, I should say. So many different styles in here. It's quite amazing. It's like, it looks like 3 different artists collaborating sometimes. There's that face again. He also talks about that scene, that prisoner in Shanghai. Paul tells him, though, he says, it has nothing, me communicating with Zarth in the future, I've never felt like it was linked to me being, molested. And then one day he got a box of science fiction pulps and science fiction books, and he became fascinated by them. And this is interesting. He says, basically, when he looks at these pulps, almost like Ozymandias and the Watchmen looking at all the TVs, he sees prophecies of the future, real things that, even though they're garish epics set down by clumsy scribes, they were prophetic if you knew how to look. Like, read between the lines, I guess. What a weird image here. He's looking in a department store window. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Is it a glove display? Very odd. There are some things in this book, I gotta say, I'm almost positive I want to blame the translator. Little things don't seem to add up. Sometimes things are said that seem like they're gonna lead onto something. They're kind of dropped. So then again, maybe I can't blame the translator. But something's a little off about this book. As far as when you're reading it, you're like, wait, that seems a little odd. Who knows? They're French guys, so they're different. They're different than us. We see Paul as a little kid communicating with Zarn. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say Zarn? Let me get his name again. Zarth Arn. We also find out about this kind of another figment of his imagination, kind of sci-fi related, is this almost like barbarian alien princess named Allura, who he actually could almost manifest. He would imagine her so strongly that he has memories of like clinging to her on a foreign planet in a prison. This page is really interesting because now we see him living in this total fantasy. Because Zartharan is in a fantasy. He really is communicating with this guy 100,000 years from now. But he also has his little side adolescent fantasies of like being the guy in the Frank R. Paul cover from, Amazing or Astounding or whatever, And look how it's drawn. It almost looks like a Golden Age comic. All of a sudden, the style shifts. He even makes the line shaky. It almost looks like just a much cruder artist. Because, this stuff is slicker than grease, But then look at this. I love that idea because it's almost like this is what a child his fantasies would look like that. It would be drawn like that. These spaceships are very bulbous and silly. Just like in all those old magazine covers. Even he knows Allure is a figment of his imagination. He's not deluded. But he really, did have nights where he fell asleep with her in his arms, as if she was right there. So as you walk through New York City, this is kind of interesting. You know how in the 50s everything got space age? Cars had fins, so they look like rocket ships. Hi-fi stereos who are all crazy designs, futuristic. To him, he sees this as propaganda, like the powers that be are trying to get us ready for this future. Most people just thought, oh, that's an interesting design. But he reads more into it. Vacuum cleaners called the atomic pile. Atomic energy science kits for children. It's just so weird how much I like this art. This is just silly art. It's weird, but I really like it. Sometimes I see Morris Velikoop in here. You know that Canadian artist? He kind of draws like Seth, I guess, but I like his art better than Seth. More interesting. But I see a lot of Morris Velikoop in here. So here's the interesting thing. His psychiatrist starts believing him. And pretty much he doesn't even care about curing him anymore. He's actually just like, can't wait for his next session so he can press him for information about this future world. He even writes an article about it in a very popular magazine. He kind of becomes famous. So psychiatrist isn't very good. He's doesn't really care about healing Paul or helping him. But then again, it's a pretty fascinating story. So now we find out that Zarth Arn actually was in the high command of the Depopulator. And so when the Depopulator was going down, when it was like the last days of his empire, we see this old guy saying, "You better take off that uniform. They're gonna fry you." And the Galactic Forces find them, the Depopulator's enemies. And he says, "I'll tell you where he's hiding." He has this new invention where he can transport his brain across galaxies. You'll never find him if he, operates this device, if he activates it. And they're like, "Why should we trust you?" Of course, they don't believe him. But finally, he eventually convinces them. And they're like, "Okay, if it means we can find the Depopulator." These faces are just so funny. It's just so odd. But I do like this futuristic black, white, and gray art in these future scenes. So they go into this abandoned kind of compound, and they find the Depopulator. He's about to activate this machine, and Zarth runs in, and he aims at himself. Well, I think he didn't mean to. He was just trying to pull it away, so the Depopulator couldn't escape, and he hits himself, and that's why, young Paul in Shanghai started communicating with this guy, because he kind of transported his brain all the way across many galaxies to Paul's brain. I love this graphic here, especially from this black and white and gray to this. That's striking. So here's Paul, seeing that prisoner once again, and that was the first time he mind linked with Zarth. We find out more about this whole thing about don't talk about Sheol, the prison planet. You'll find out in a few weeks why. But right now, we got to keep a lid on it. And finally, Paul comes home to Washington, D.C. to be with his wife and child. He's done with his therapy for now, which is probably a good idea because that therapist sounded like a piece of shit. A Brainstorm in Vermont, Chapter 3. Paul is visited by this guy. I think he's a military guy. And he says, "Hey, you got to be part of this project. There's this kind of consultant who's been having amazing results doing these brainstorming sessions, getting the top guys in their field, and maybe using a little black magic, as he calls it, stirring the pot a little. And these sessions have been coming up with amazing inventions, amazing ideas that the military also is interested in. And he wants you to be part of it because you're a smarty pants." So he does. He goes off to Vermont, leaves his family, and he gets picked up by Gib Zelbub, who we saw earlier, and or I should say later too. Takes him to his beautiful, crazily architected house. Once again, very space age. He meets all these other geniuses, and we already realize this guy's pretty eccentric. His assistant Agatha here calls him Master. And Paul even comments on it. He's like, "Hey, we must have discipline behind this project." I love the weird things like this. I don't even know what this is, like some weird kinetic sculpture or something, but it looks great. Right here, too. So the weekend begins. There's objects of art there to stimulate your imagination and the trajectory of your thoughts. Everything's made for this, getting ready for this brainstorming session. And he also gives them some punch, which probably has hypnagogic, hallucinatory, like LSDs in it or something. He activates this little machine, and he hypnotizes them all. So this is why he does this. And then that night, when everyone's asleep, we realize that he really is interested in Paul more than anything, because he read the article about how Paul's communicating with the future, and he can mind link with this guy. And under his command, he orders Paul to make Zarth do his bidding. Basically, get all these weapons from the armory. And so this guy can learn this future technology. Basically, it'll jumpstart, civilization 100,000 years. And of course, Zarth is just like, Paul, what are you doing? Please, Paul, don't do this. Paul can't stop himself. Zagreb's totally... Oh, God, I keep saying his name wrong. Zelbub. Zelbub is totally in control. I like this page here of him sleepwalking. Well, not really sleepwalking, but under the command. Very reminiscent of that MC Escher one. And he does Zelbub's bidding. He can't, and the whole time he's pleading with Paul. He's like, Paul, you're ruining me. You're destroying me. Because even his close friends, like the commander of the army, he's just all like, you'll never leave this building alive. What are you doing? Here's a nice graphic design, too, showing off all the inventions of tomorrow. So the next day, all these geniuses wake up, memory card again, and they're all just like, what did we do last night? I have vague memories. I don't really remember. Then they hear a gunshot, and they see Agatha, the assistant from earlier, and she's skiing down the mountain, and she crashes. And they find her, and she says, guys, get out of here immediately. He'll make you watch the electric spark. Which I think they already did the night before. I think that's what she's talking about. That sparkly ball. Zelbub shows up, snaps his fingers, and says, I'm going to have to erase this unfortunate episode. Look at this groovy design here. And we see that, they don't even remember this in a minute. I like how they all have red and green eyes all of a sudden, like they're wearing 3D glasses or 3D eyeballs. Next, chapter 4, The Triumph of Zelbub. 1958, 2 years later. Here's Paul's wife and kid. Paul still has these hypnotic commands kind of still in his brain. So whenever Zelbub calls, he comes a-running. And now Zelbub has really lost it. Look at it. He's dressed in like some Roman emperor. He's like the space emperor of the atomic empire. And he's got all of his little cadre of geniuses here. This reminds me of that retro airport in New York City. American, is it? Very of that era. There's some funny stuff in here, too. I can't get in every joke. But it definitely has some humor in it. So now we see Paul meeting with Zelbub once again, alone. And Paul feels terrible. Because all of his memories come back. I don't know why. Paul seems more resistant to the brainwashing and the hypnotism than the other guys. And he feels terrible that he betrayed Zarth. Zelbub's there to say, you must go back. Because we don't know how to use any of these weapons. We need, the instruction manual. Of course, Zarth doesn't talk to him anymore. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to fucking help you ever again. So he's in jail, And so we finally found out about this conspiracy. Once again, I don't even understand what this has to do with the plot. The emperor comes into his prison cell and says, here's the ashes of your adopted father, the depopulator. And I guess he's been on shale this whole time. And I guess he died just recently, which I don't even understand the dramatic impact of that. Who cares? Very strange. Zarth continues to just basically be like, yep, punish me any way you want. Because he feels terrible. He was a very loyal citizen of this galactic empire. Now we're Brussels, 1958. Due to a post-hypnotic suggestion by Zelbub, all those geniuses, who were at that conclave, he says, on April 1st, you will wake up very happy. So we see that couple, Paul's friends, They live in Brussels, by the way. And they're just so happy. I don't really know why. And I guess they're going to meet that night, and a bus is going to take them to this, like, super futuristic city that Zelbub has, I think he's going to take them into the future, supposedly. That was another thing. I wasn't quite sure. So they all get on the bus. There's some humorous little hijinks here. I mean, this is total slapstick. It's the old hose in the face. Oh, the car tire's on the hose, so the water stopped. And then Zelbub gets doused. It was just like, well, that's a weird little interlude. It's like an old Warner Brothers cartoon. Not even a UPA cartoon. Here's some more goofy humor. I didn't quite understand this either. They're all gathered in Nucleopolis, which I don't know where it's supposed to be. I think maybe it's a space station orbiting Earth. And Zelbub says, look, here is the perfect man. I guess he's from the future. He takes off his space helmet, his fishbowl helmet. And when he puts it back on, he accidentally grabs the punch bowl. So more of this just like really goofy slapstick humor. Once again, these characters are all confused. They're just like, why can't I remember what we did? Why we're here? Like, they're really fucked up from his hypnotism. But they kind of decide to, like, let's just go check out the city on our own. And it's pretty futuristic and crazy, as you can see. There's all these people from the future. Speaking of guitar picks, Sto Orchio. I guess that's the greeting of the future. Everyone's saying Sto Orchio to him. And then we see, this was very subtle. For this overhead shot, we see their car and another car is coming through the intersection. Smash, and the car totally barrels over. Everyone's okay, though. Paul and the couple are fine. And then Zelbub was in the other car. He's like, get him! This is just some really fun-looking graphic design here with this car zooming through the night. And here's the meaning of that scene from the beginning. We see them driving, the deer comes out, and we see a quick, like, flashback. Oh, yep, and those guys caught them, and they became pawns of Zelbub. The Planet Sheol, Chapter 5. So now we jump ahead. It's kind of weird, the storytelling in this. It's like, all that drama and like what's going to happen. But now it says, 1 year after Zelbub's grand project floundered. So this is, I guess they defeated Zelbub off camera. And now a year later, all those people who were brainwashed are kind of having a reunion just to talk about it. I mean, it was a pretty crazy thing, so they want to process it. So now they're remembering the second part of their abduction was taking them to Electron. Wait, is that how you say it? It's some island. Electron? I'll find out in a second. Look at these crazy, just like Dali-esque landscapes. I don't even know. I guess it's just more modern art on his premises. Everyone has clouded memories. They remember certain things when they were relaxing, but the war games that Zelbub had him play, those are kind of foggy. It's very interesting the way he describes this, their brain processes. So on this island, Electron, it is Electron with a K. And I guess Paul had more freedom to just walk around because he's the important one. He's talking to Zarth. So now we see Zarth on trial. Once again, this is just some great Like almost looks like someone from Citizen Kane or something. Some cool old movie, black and white movie. And we find out the whole history, how he was, you know, when he was a kid, he was lost. They thought he was dead. The depopulator found him, kind of adopted him, of course, so he worked for the depopulator, but he realized what a horrible tyrant he was. Even though the depopulator killed his own father. But he does say that I've been loyal to the Galactic Empire ever since, and to the Emperor. And of course, Paul is still agonizing about this. He's like, oh, what have I done? So he's climbing up this cliff. And this is so strange. There's just this little prison cell in the cliff wall. It's Agatha, the woman, the skier from earlier. And so they kind of have this moment. Paul tells her how badly he feels. And it's interesting when they have they share this little moment where they smile at each other. Her skin turns blue as if she is Allura. Here's some more of that, differently drawn stuff, because we're seeing Zarth Arn when he was conquering the universe for the Emperor. And look at this, just this line work. It's like I don't know, EC cigar or something. I kind of like this, though. I would love to read a whole graphic novel drawn like that in this Golden Age comic style. So finally, Paul realizes there's something he can do, because Zarth is being condemned to the planet of Sheol. And apparently Sheol is like hell on earth. I can't even wrap my head around what they're talking about sometimes in this book. So Zelbub tracks down Paul. And when he gets there, though, Paul's gone. And it's kind of this ghostly image of Zarth. And he has this weapon. He basically knocks out Zelbub's flunkies, the little flippa-dippa guys. And then he transports. He basically says, I've got other plans for you, Zelbub. Guys, look at this. I love this graphic design, whatever that is. That's so cool. It looks like something from an old geometry textbook from the 60s. So somehow, Paul actually transferred his body with Zarth. So the ship delivering Zarth to Sheol, all of a sudden they're like, hey, it's this other guy. Should we still deliver him? And the prison ship commander is like, hell yeah. Just because he changed forms doesn't mean he's not going to, serve his sentence. So this is what it is. So apparently on this planet, there's these creatures called the Dromazoas. And they're motivated by the best intentions. They're these kindly creatures, but they have no idea how much pain they're inflicting on people by their kindly ministrations. I just thought it was a very weird idea. And we'll meet them in a second. So Paul takes Zarth's place. Even breathing on the planet hurts your throat. There's quartz crystals in the atmosphere. And eventually the Dromazoas show up. And they're very silly looking creatures, kind of surreal. They're very odd looking. We'll see more of them in a second. Yeah, something about these designs are very creepy. It almost has this bougie boy-like thing going on. And everything they're saying, they think they're being kindly. They're like, oh, what a beautiful creature. And they're complimenting him, but I guess it hurts whatever they're doing to him. And then we see what happened. Zarth transported Zelbub to the planet to take Paul's place. I don't know how any of this works. It doesn't really make any sense. I don't get it at all. I don't really care, though. So now he's going to have to suffer on Sheol. Just desserts. But look at these guys. The Dromazoas here. This one's like a Picasso painting. I love this one. Just very creepy. That looks like something Devo would design, Very weird. And so now it seems like everyone on the island, on Electron, are kind of waking up from their stupor now that Soulbub's gone, I guess. Turns out they're in Greece, the country. He was like telling them, "Oh, you're on another planet a galaxy away." They're like, "I don't know, we're just in Greece. We never left the planet." And now we're back to that reunion, you know. And everyone's all like, "Well, we don't need to meet next year. I guess this whole thing is over." Paul says goodbye to the couple from Brussels. And he also says goodbye to Agatha. She asks who Allura is. She says, "When I was imprisoned in that cliff, you called me Allura, don't you remember?" I kind of like that, even though we didn't see it. It's a nice little thing. He looks back, and right behind Agatha, we see like a ghostly apparition of Allura. And as he's nodding off on the plane home, he has a little teenage fantasy revisited, him holding Allura in his arms. There's another scene, kind of odd. I don't really see what this adds to the whole story. But now, apparently, Zarth Arn can travel through time now. And he goes to visit this historical figure who he has centered his studies on for years. This one guy named Stowe Odin, this kind of old monarch before the Galactic Empire was consolidated. He's been studying him for years, fascinated by him. So he actually travels through time to talk to the guy. And yeah, I don't really get this, sorry. But he's basically saying, "Oh, how did you escape Sheol? No other force in all the galaxy is capable of catapulting a man so far from his home." And he says, "It appears that microbes emit this energy. In wishing to do good, they do harm." So the Dromaeosaurs are supposedly, they're microbes, even though they're the size of people. I don't know. I don't know if that matters. I just thought this add to the confusion of this. Look at this guard here. Sort of weird creature. So Zarth says, these microbes give rise in the end to a terrible, inexplicable force. And Odin says, "Did you know it has a name?" The name is empathy. Don't really understand that at all. I know it's trying to be this kind of like, oh wow, that's heavy, but I don't know if it was earned. But whatever, it's a sweet ending because we see Paul with his daughter, and we're back in Mexico in another beautiful panel of the cliffs. So actually, it looks like they finished this in 2012. It was published in 2013 in France, the original edition. More of these really slick end papers. And that's it for Atomic Empire by T. Smolderen and A. Clérisse. And hope you guys like looking at it. I forgot to mention, this is another generous endowment from the Archibald Gernsback Institute of Higher Comic Book Knowledge. And yeah, this is another great book he sent me, and never heard of these guys. And I gotta say, this art, when halfway through this, I was just like, I don't even understand this book. It's kind of weird. That's why I read it twice. And but I was just like, I'm keeping this anyway. The art is so different, and it's very pleasing to my eye, at least. It just looks really good. It looks like animated art. I even see later Kyle Baker in here. It's really crazy, cell animation style. So hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.